guys, welcome back. You may remember a few years ago I did a very controversial video in which I took an MTH SD70ACE and compared it to an Athearn SD70ACE. I figured it was time for a bit of a rematch because it's been several years and both manufacturers have made changes. So with that said, today's video is about MTH's SD70ACE versus Athearn's SD70ACE, and we're going to be looking at the most recently released versions of these locomotives, which are the Norfolk Southern Heritage units, specifically Savannah and Atlanta Heritage unit on each of those manufacturers. Now, I want to put out a little disclaimer before I get started, and that's this. You ultimately vote with your wallet. You make the decision. I'm not telling you which decision to make. I'm just telling you which one will make more sense for what you're focused on. So if you're a guy that likes detail, I may suggest a certain brand. And if you're a guy that has to have this specific feature, I may suggest a certain brand. And to keep things absolutely fair, if there's any chance that something could be a tie, I went ahead and awarded the tie. And I also decided to keep the exact same categories as before. Now technology evolves, so I've evolved, and I won't be using an old classic whiteboard like I used a few years ago, but I'll be using a digital whiteboard. So with that said, let's take a quick look at the whiteboard before we start assigning winners to each section and an overall winner. So let's take a look. The categories are sound, drive, detail, support, functions, paint, lighting, and DCC use. So there you have it. All the categories we'll be looking at to evaluate these locomotives. We've got a lot to cover, so let's get started on the first category. So sound is a very tricky category to talk about because it's in the ear of the beholder, if you will. But I've narrowed down the sound of each locomotive, and I'm going to play for those for you right now. Athearn bell. Athearn horn. To determine the winner of the sound category, I wanted to listen to both of the locomotives, just like you listen to them. And I've determined that Athearn slightly edges out MTH in the sound. Now I will give MTH this little bit of credit. Their locomotive sounds more prototypically correct from the videos I could find online. But to the ear, and that could be an interpretive thing just to me, I prefer the Athearn locomotive, and I noticed a lot of people prefer the Athearn locomotive on the sound. So, with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next category. Athearn's drive, 1 speed step. Speed steps. That 1 speed step, it moves along smoothly, but it does have some brakes in it to where it's kind of lurching along a little bit and yanking and stopping. Once you go to 2, it moves better, as you can see there. There you saw a short clip of the two locomotives' drive system, which is the next category, drive. Now this is too close to call, so I've awarded the drive to both Athearn and MTH because both of them have a very smooth drive system. Now let's move on to the next category. The next category we'll be looking at is detail. Now let's go to some live footage to see the detail differences between MTH and Athearn and determine a winner on detail. Okay, I'm going to go into a quick explanation of why I chose Athearn over MTH on the detail level. Now, Athearn, almost everybody understands, has better detail than MTH, but I want to show you just a couple features of why they have better detail than MTH. I want you to look back here at this area right here. It's the exhaust. Now this, compared to the MTH model, is much smaller. This is the MTH model, and it's significantly larger on the exhaust area, along with the windows as well. When you actually do the measurements, the Athearn model is accurate, and the MTH's model is oversized. It also has several areas on the locomotive that are oversized, but this is one of the most obvious areas that's oversized on the locomotive. Athearn went to extreme detail when they did this locomotive. For example, right here, both the doors protrude on the turbocharger compartment doors. They're protruded out from the body. They're not all one frame. So that's something that MTH did not do, and I think they did a great job going in those little details like that. Another detail is the handrails. You know, people really get on Athearn about the handrails, mostly because they're so thin. But one quick thing I want to tell you about the handrails is MTH's handrails aren't prototypically thin. Athearn's are. Yes, they're plastic. Yes, they have a lot of give to them. So Athearn is a less sturdy locomotive if you were to drop it on the floor or smash it a little bit than MTH. But that has a lot to do with MTH's thicker molds on the handrails. So MTH has sturdier handrails, but they're not prototypically thick. So think about it from Athearn's perspective or MTH's perspective. If MTH switches to plastic handrails that are thinner and more prototypically accurate, people are going to complain that they're not metal. And if Athearn sits there and changes from these plastic handrails to metal handrails and they're thicker, they might get the folks off their back that were complaining about the metal handrails, but then they got another horde of people getting on their back because they're prototypical modelers and they want the handrails the correct thickness. So it's really a lose-lose for all these manufacturers on that particular issue. But overall, I think Athearn did a great job. Also, another telltale fact on Athearn's locomotive versus MTH's is all these grills and areas that aren't supposed to have anything showing. It's kind of supposed to be see-through. I saw on the MTH model there are wires and stuff protruding out or visible. I don't see that on the Athearn model, and it really shows the time and maybe the design of how these things were done, and I really commend Athearn for the detail. So that's just a few of the details. Some of the other details are covered on the Athearn review of the SD70ACE Norfolk Southern Heritage units. I don't really want to kill your guys' time and repeat myself, but overall, those are some of the major points. Another one I want to show you real quick before we let you go on to other things is the ditch lights. First of all, on the prototype, the ditch light housings are not part of the post. The post runs behind them. On the MTH model, they're part of the post, and they're slightly oversized. This is the MTH model again. As you can see, the ditch light housings are oversized and part of the post. Also, MTH does have metal handrails, but on the front and back they're plastic, and they were distorted, as well as the oversized cab windows you can see in this video. MTH never made a correction on this. Basically, what MTH did for their Norfolk Southern Heritage units versus their previous units was they slapped on some details like the ECP connector box or the ECP equipment box on the side and some other details that made it some of the spotting features covered, but did not go into the depth that Athearn went into. Again, MTH is commendable, should be commended for making an effort, not just slapping a scheme on another SD70ACE. But if you have to compare the two, Athearn went to more detail. It's just that simple. Alright, that's about it for detail. The next category is support. Now, I don't need to show you any model footage to cover the support category, but I do want to talk about this for a quick minute. I have had more issues with MTH's support system than Athearn's support system. Keep in mind, guys, I don't just review products. I'm a customer. I purchase these locomotives, I run these locomotives, and when they break, I call for support. I've had a lot easier time with Athearn than I have with MTH at getting a hold of somebody. First of all, let's just talk about business hours. Athearn's open most of the day, MTH has a short little window, I think it's 12 to 3 or 12 to 4 or maybe 12 to 5, that you can call the technical support and get your item looked at, your locomotive looked at. There's also been a recent case with MTH where I was given a RA number. They were supposed to pay for shipping, and then they never sent me a shipping label, so I just still have the broken locomotive in my possession. Also, visiting Athearn's headquarters helped open my eyes to the support that is behind Athearn. Shane Wilson, you guys may joke with me that I'm buddy-buddy with him, but he's a great guy and he does a lot of work, a lot of research into making the products better, and that ties into the support element. So overall, I'm going to have to award support to Athearn, and it's not even close enough to call. It's just kind of a landslide. So Athearn wins the support section, so there's that. Now let's talk about functions. Another little category that really we don't have to look at locomotives to cover. I'm just going to briefly cover it verbally. MTH has 28 functions. Athearn has 12 listed in their pamphlet. The Tsunami decoder has more than 12 functions, but it doesn't have a full 28. So doing simple math, MTH has more options on their SD70ACE than Athearn does with the Tsunami decoder. The things I do like, surprisingly, even though some people don't, are the cab chatter, the crash noises, some of the different sounds they have, and let's keep in mind they do have remote operating couplers even though they're out of scale. So overall, I'm going to award the functions section to MTH. Now let's look at the next section, which is paint. I'm going to show you a quick clip of each of the locomotives that are labeled, and overall you'll probably agree with me that paint is too close to call, so I've awarded that category to both manufacturers. Now let's talk about potentially the most controversial topic of the entire video, lighting. Now, there's those folks that like the LED lighting, and there's those folks that like the incandescent lighting. Just off of what I've seen around the internet, the LED folks heavily outweigh the incandescent folks. But I do want to show you one quick thing. Now keep in mind, this is not biased towards Athearn products. This is my personal preference on lighting. So I'm going to show you a quick clip that you may have to enlarge on your screen that will show you a side-by-side comparison to Athearn locomotives and the prototype and MTH locomotives and the prototype. What I'm trying to get to when I show you this is that the MTH lighting, even though it's LED, is not prototypically accurate. The incandescents are. Even so, I've decided to take these categories and look at them as objectively as I can. But first, let me show you this real quick clip of those locomotives side by side. Okay, now that you've seen that side-by-side comparison, I don't think anybody can argue that those LEDs installed on the MTH locomotives look as prototypically accurate as the Athearns. But even still, I'm taking popular opinion and consumer want into this review, into this comparison, and I'm weighing it in. And I've decided to award MTH the category for lighting because they have switched to LEDs. Now again, personal preference is something totally different. I just want to demonstrate to you guys that this video is not just my opinion on everything. I'm actually going against the grain and going with the the majority on this and showing you guys that yes, the majority wants LED lighting, so I'm going to go ahead and award that to MTH. All right, let's move on to the next category. Now, part of my inexperience labeled the last category back in 2009 DCC use, but I promised you guys I'd keep everything the same, so we'll stick to that. The DCC use category means which locomotive is most DCC friendly. And most of you guys will know and understand that obviously the winner in that category is Athearn, because MTH has their own proprietary DCS system. It does operate on DCC systems, but a lot of the CVs, which are configuration variables, can't be changed, so you can't tweak all the individual things like changing the bell, changing the horns, start voltage, stop voltage, things like that. So DCC use is clearly an Athearn category that's given to them. So that's it for the categories. Let's go ahead and recap everything and finish with some final thoughts. With the last category being DCC use going to Athearn, the total is now 6 on Athearn's side and 4 on MTH's side, and that wraps this up. So obviously Athearn wins the competition. Pretty simple math. They have the better product overall in the SD70ACe, but let's do a quick recap. Let's just do a real quick recap and look at the final decision. Obviously Athearn wins this one in a fairly close battle, but I really want to drive this point home to you guys. If you must have LEDs and you must have metal handrails, then go with MTH. If you must have prototypical accuracy, DCC use, and pretty much every other thing I believe that should be in a model, then I would go with Athearn. So unless you're got the blinders on with LEDs and metal handrails, I don't see MTH's SD70ACe stacking up to Athearn's. It may look closer in the numbers, but I believe Athearn's locomotive is a clearer winner, a more accurate prototype. After all, we're all modelers, and for $250, $300, do we want to pay for a model that's not as accurate? I don't think so. That's just my personal opinion. Again, you guys can interpret this whatever way you want. Vote with your wallet. You can always comment about something I missed or whatever you think that MTH may have a stronger point on. But I believe overall, the better model is Athearn by a lot larger margin than the numbers indicate. Now, the detail that Athearn has gone to and the customer service weigh heavily for me. I mean, just the ridiculous amount of detail from the things I mentioned in my Athearn video, plus some annoying things with the MTH locomotive. Nothing against MTH. I think they're doing a good job, and I see on their next releases of the Dash 9 and Gevos, they look like they're stepping up their game. But the snowplow, I haven't installed that. I've got all the MTH Heritage units UP, and that snowplow comes off, and you either have to hard glue it or push it so hard that it still wobbles and comes off eventually. It's just annoying. I thought they might fix that. Can't really route the MU cables through that snowplow very easily. I've snapped a few MU cables trying that. I've gotten a few successfully through. The MU cables don't have silver tipped end. The detail, the attention to detail is there with Athearn. And maybe it is a little bit of behind the scenes look and my understanding of how Athearn operates, because I was invited there and I was able to see behind the scenes how much effort Shane Wilson goes into and how much he listens to the customers and actually pays attention and tracks their complaints and things like that. Maybe that is weighing a factor, but when you look at the physical model, the winner is clearly Athearn in detail. Now, if you disagree with me about the detail thing, that's fine, but we need to get together and I'm going to schedule you an eye exam, and I may fly out there and take you and pay for you an eye exam, because if you want to just argue about detail, there's no comparison. And I hope I proved that in this video. But overall, you've got your folks that are in the MTH camp, and you got your folks that are in the Athearn camp. Now, I'm in both of them. Like I said, all 6 UP Heritage units plus the George Bush 4141 plus 8 8444 are all MTH. But now I've got 10 SD70ACes in the Norfolk Southern Heritage scheme from Athearn, plus the 11th NS1030, plus like a dozen other ones. So I'm not one side or the other. I'm not hardliner like some of you guys are. I'm trying to tip the balances and show you there's good sides to both models, but if you have to pick an overall model winner, that is Athearn. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope this helps you make your decisions on the Norfolk Southern Heritage units and other SD70ACes from these two manufacturers. I hope both of these manufacturers continue to strive to improve their products over time, and we'll see you next time right here on my channel. Take care.